right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. If you got your questions, you can put them below the video if you're on a smaller screen, like a phone. If you're on a larger screen, like a computer, it should be to the right of the video. All right, so looks like we got one question in here from Bruce B. Says, in the top speed golf system, a left side dominant pulling approach or right side dominant teaching style, which elements make it and what are advantages and disadvantages? So the top speed golf system is neither a left side dominant or right side dominant style. And the reality is that when you are hitting the ball, you are doing both. You are pulling through with your lead side and you are pushing through with your trail side, right? So I would describe the lead side like throwing a frisbee, right? So if I was going to throw a frisbee, I would if I was trying to throw a frisbee as powerfully as possible, right? What I would do is I would turn my back, right? So if I'm throwing this way, I would turn my back. I'd get my momentum moving forward. I would get my lead arm, kind of try to get my hand as far away from me as possible. And I would turn into my arm. And then as I'm coming through, I would let my arm kind of explode off my chest and release toward the target. That's the same thing that you're doing in the golf swing, right? So I go up to the top of the swing. When I come down, I'm kind of turning into my arm a little bit, right? And then coming through, I release the club, right? It comes off my chest. I come around to a full finish, right? And also I get my momentum moving forward, right? Same kind of thing. The trail arm is very much like skipping a rock, right? So if I were to try to skip a rock get to skip as many times as possible, right? What I would do, or try to get as much speed on that rock as possible, right? I would turn my back, I turn my shoulder, I would step forward to get my momentum moving forward. I would get my body like angled away, so that way I can throw that more kind of like a level, low and more level with the water. Still coming down into the water a little bit, so that way it can skip. But I want it to be fairly. I don't want to throw it straight down into the water, right? Because if I lean my body forward and I'm going to throw it straight down. It's not going to skip. So if I want it to skip, I want it to throw it to where it's just kind of coming down at a gentle angle down to the water. I'm going to lead with my elbow. My right wrist is going to be bent back, and then I'm going to rotate my body open and let it go out in front, just like you would in the golf swing. So you're really doing both in the golf swing. There's no necessarily one side that's more dominant than the other. If I had to say, whatever side that is your dominant hand, that's probably going to be your more dominant side. So me being right-handed, probably going to be more dominant with my right side, right? Now, you may want to feel different things. So, for example, let's say that you have a golf swing that kind of looks like this, right? Well, that would probably be more of a right side dominant swing. Now, there could be things going on in your swing that are leading to that. So, for example, let's say you're coming down steep. If you start down steep, you may stall your body to be able to get that club to kind of work back on track down to the ball, right? Because if I start down steep and then I really open up my body and have all those great moves, well, what's going to happen is that club's going to continue to come down steep. I'm not going to be able to hit good shots. So what a lot of people will do is they'll get here and then they'll stand up out of it. And now that club drops in back behind me. Now I've got the club shallowed out late, but I can hit a functional shot, right? But if you're someone who has the club face open as well, so if you're coming down, this club face is wide open, you may stall your body so that way you can throw your right side sooner and be able to square up the face, right? Because if I'm coming in, my face is open, and then I stop my body and release the club, I can square it up. If I have that face open and I keep rotating my body and get my hands in front, well, look, that face is going to stay open. I'm going to hit the ball a mile to the right. So what I would want to do is I'd want to get that club face more closed, so that way when I rotate my body, the face is square at impact. If I were to have that face more closed and then release it, well, look, now that face is super shut. I'm going to hit everything left, right? So you have to have the club coming down and the club face in a better position to be able to do that. that's the main reason why people really struggle. And that's probably might be why you're asking this, Bruce. Like, should it be right hand dominant, left hand dominant? Is because maybe in your swing, things aren't quite in sync and, so on and so forth. But really what it comes down to is that you're going to get that, you have to get that club face in position and that club shaft in a correct position coming down to be able to have the lead side leading the way properly and the trail side leading the way properly, right? So if you're struggling with that, what I would recommend doing is checking out the 20-minute shallowing fix. This is a course that helps you to get the club shallowing out and to get the club face more square. So that way you can sequence better, hit straighter shots. So, there's a reason, if you watch the videos in the Top Speed Golf System, Clay doesn't mention anything about left side, lead side dominant, trail side dominant, anything like that, because there isn't necessarily, going to be a dominant side for everybody. Everybody's a little bit different. But generally, because I know I have friends that are, are left-handed, but play golf right-handed, right? And vice versa, right? And, for that kind of golfer, they may feel better with more of a lead side more done because that's where they're stronger, right? Me personally, I'm a right-handed golfer. My right-handed swing is going to be my right hand's going to be a little bit more dominant in the swing. But literally, it doesn't mean that we're not using the lead side. It doesn't mean that we're not using the trail side and vice versa. You're really using both, right? But as far as which side is going to be dominant, it's really going to be dependent on the golfer, the dominant hand, what you're most comfortable with, and so on and so forth. All right, keep the questions coming. We got plenty of time left here. All right, so we got a question here from Charlie. Says, IQ, when describing the setup position, you mentioned pushing the hips back. Does that mean sticking your butt out? Kind of, right? So when I talk about, so let's kind of just go through what Charlie's talking about. So, a lot of times people ask, how far do I stand away from the ball? What should kind of like my posture be at address? And there isn't, as I mentioned before, there isn't like a one main place where you have to be. There's some players that stand taller and hit the ball great, and there's some players that squat down a little bit, hit the ball great, and there's everything in between, right? So you kind of have to play around to find what works best for you. So like Freddie Couples, he stands pretty tall. He doesn't really bend down very much. And then if you look at like Keegan Bradley, right? He's kind of like this, and works really well for him. He's a fantastic ball striker. So what I'm going to go over is more of just kind of like a generalization. It's going to put most people in a pretty good spot. And what you can do is you can kind of alter it based on what works best for you. So first of all, what you want to do is kind of relax your arms and your shoulders. I want you to feel like your arms are wet noodles hanging from your shoulder sockets. And we're going to get in our normal stance width here. And what I want you to do is just get a little bit of flex in the knees, right? Just a little bit of flex in the knees. And the amount of flex that you put into your knees is just enough to kind of put you into an athletic reactionary position, right? So if you imagine if somebody was running at you, or if you had like a bear running at you or something, what kind of pose would you take to be able to go in either direction, be able to move athletically, right? What most people are going to do is they're going to do something like this, where they just get a little bit of flex in the knees. You're not going to see anybody go like this, right, where their legs are straight. You're not going to see anybody go like this, right? Everybody's just going to get about right here, because that's what's going to allow you a little bit of flex in the knees, get your butt a little bit low, so that way you can go one way or another. But if you go too low, you flex too much, then you could put yourself in a position that's not the best to be able to move properly. Some people may be able to move really well from that position, like a Keegan Bradley, but Not everybody, right? So again, a little bit of flex in the knees. That little flex in the knees is typically going to put your kneecap right over the balls of your feet. So if you're going to draw a line right down from my kneecap, it'd be going right through the balls of my feet, right? So now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push my hips back and my chest forward, and I want to maintain a good balance in my weight from my heel to the toe, right? So what I don't want to do, and this is kind of maybe what you would be alluding to, where I'm talking about sticking my butt out. Well, if I'm relaxed here, get a little bit of flex in the knees, and then I just push my butt back, right? And then I have most of my weight in my heels. Well, yeah, my butt's going to go way back like this, right? So what I want is I want to have even pressure distribution from my toes to my heels, right? I want to stay nice. I want to stay nice and balanced. So if I do that, a little bit of flex in the knees, I push my hips back and my chest forward, right? And if I let my arms relax and kind of hang down, I want to stop about when my hands are about a fist width in front of my legs, and that's going to put me in a nice athletic, setup position that's going to allow me to move. It's going to set me up to be able to move pretty well, right? So I wouldn't necessarily call that sticking my butt out, right? I mean, that's up for interpretation, right? I mean, you could say literally, yeah, I'm sticking my butt out, kind of, but you have to. I mean, you're not going to set up like this, right? So no matter how you stand to a ball, you're going to be sticking your butt out a little bit, right? But I wouldn't say I'm going like this, either, because again, that's putting weight in my heels, right? So a little bit of flex in the knees, push this back, chest forward, maintain the weight distribution, right? Now for a driver, because the driver is so much longer, right? So if I grab my driver here, or one of my spare drivers I got, and I put this kind of next to this is basically like a approach wedge right here, a gap wedge. You can see, I mean, it's almost an entire grip length longer. So because of that, you'll stand a little bit taller and you'll actually reach your arms out just a little bit, right? So let me kind of show you what the setup would be kind of for iron. So again, relaxed arms, a little bit of flex in the knees, hips back, chest forward, hands are about fist width in front. That's going to be set up for pretty much everything, right? So whether you have 5-iron, because your 5-iron is just not going to be 6-iron. Those clubs just aren't going to be that much longer than this. Your 5-iron is probably like that. So it's not going to make that much of a difference, right? Your hands are still going to be pretty much hanging straight down for the most part. But if I do that for a driver, I'm going to be like this, right? So for a driver, you'll stand a little bit taller and you'll reach just a little bit and you'll be more like this, right? That's how the setup is. So, I mean, you can kind of make your mind up whether you feel like that's sticking the butt out or not. I would, if it was me, I would say not. I mean, technically, you are sticking your butt. You're going to be sticking your butt out no matter what. But I'm not like trying to push my hips way back or anything like that. I'm really trying to feel nice and balanced, like my hips are more on top of my ankles here, even though my hips might be set back a little bit from my ankles. But because I'm leaning forward with my chest, right, that balances everything really nicely. So my hips do have to go back a little bit because my chest has to go forward some. I'm not standing straight up like this. Even Freddie Couples, who stands pretty tall to the ball, has his butt out a little bit, right? Yeah, no problem, Charlie. Glad to help. Yeah, keep the questions coming. Plenty of time here. About 45 minutes. I'll stay on here till noon. All right, y'all come up with questions. I'm just going to be taking care of some my other duties that I have. if we're just jumping on the office hours, I'm just waiting for questions to be asked. I'm just kind of doing some of my other stuff I got to do or that I can do while you guys are working on questions. So if you got questions, now's a good time to ask. If not, no big deal. I'll just keep working on my stuff. So Charlie N says, can a slower backswing get the club head to the same distance from the? Well, hold on. Can a slower backswing get the club head to the same distance from the ball as a faster backswing? Can a slower backswing get the club head to the same? I don't understand that. Club head to the same distance from the ball? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like from like at the top of the swing? Also, why does that matter? I guess I'm trying to understand the question and why you're asking it. I mean, basically, let's say I said yes. What was that information going to do for you? I guess I'm confused. Maybe I think I just don't understand the question. I mean, I could talk about a slower backswing versus a faster backswing. So I'll just do that until you kind of clear up confusion I'm having. But basically, typically, if you have a faster backswing, you can have a faster downswing. as well. But there's pros and cons, right? So the faster your backswing is, the harder it is to control, right? So if you're making a really fast backswing and the club is way out of position at the top, and because a lot of times it can backfire. You can bring the club back really fast, and then the club's in a very bad position because you've brought it back so fast and you don't have any control of it, and then you can't really use that energy that you created by bringing it back fast to bring it down faster because the club's in a bad position because you're going to have to make some sort of compensations or whatever to make it better. So, for example, let's say you brought it up and really fast and you don't have a real long swing and then you end up going way across the line because you brought it back so fast. And then when you start your downswing, you've got to kind of slow things down to get the club back into a position, or you go fast in your downswing as well, and you just end up coming way over the top and steep or something like that. So you kind of have to find, as far as the speed of tempo of your backswing, or you really kind of have to find what works best for you. There's some players that have really fast tempos and some players that have slower tempos. You just have to kind of find what works best for you. There's no, yes, a faster backswing can lead to a faster downswing, all things equal, but that's not usually how it works, right? A lot of times you bring the club back faster, you're not necessarily going to bring it back to the same position, right? Because the club's going to have more momentum. In moving faster, you may bring the club back in a different way or something like that. And there are plenty of players that hit the ball an absolute mile with not fast backswing. If you look at like Cameron Young, right? Pretty slow backswing, actually has a long pause at the top of his swing, hits the ball a mile. Hideki Matsuyama, same kind of thing, kind of deliberate backswing. Hits the ball a mile. So I would say, here's what I would say about the fast backswing. If you are someone who is trying to compete in long drive and you're trying to find every little thing that can get you a little bit more speed, and you're willing to train the faster backswing to get it into a good position so that way you can also use it to your advantage and be faster in the downswing, then I would say, yeah, fast backswing is good. Other than that, I would say, unless you try it and it just immediately leads to great results, faster speeds, and you're hitting it great, it's probably not worth going after. It's probably going to make more sense for you to be more deliberate with your backswing, get your club in a good position so that way you can swing the club properly in the downswing. That's my opinion on it. I don't know if that answers your question in any way, but I'm not sure. I'm a little bit confused by the question. So thought I would just talk about faster backswings versus slower backswings. But typically the club's not going to be, in my experience from what I've seen, the club's typically not going to be in the same spot at the top of the swing. Things are typically going to be moving a little bit differently because there's more momentum. You're moving faster, so you might be doing things a little bit differently. Some players that bring it back in a great spot, and you can take advantage of that and maybe gain a few miles an hour in the downswing as well. But not everyone's really going to be able to do that. I would say, like I said, if you're a long driver, I would definitely recommend trying to be, trying to have a fast backswing. If you look at long drive guys, they all have fast backswings. Anyway, let's keep going here. So Willis says, what are your thoughts about golfers past 70 years old, maybe having a better game using graphite shafts instead of steel? Could that make up for some loss of muscle and turning ability? So, I mean, what the graphite shafts do is they're just lighter. and they can have a little bit more whip to them, so it can help you get a little bit more speed. Yeah, so yeah, it can make up, for some of the lost, um, you know, the lost speed that you may experience from, you know, losing muscle and losing flexibility, losing strength. So yeah, because typically if it's lighter, you're going to be able to swing it faster, right? If it's a little bit whippier, you can typically get a little bit more of that whip through contact. The downside of it is that the whippier a shaft is, a lot of times the harder it is to control, but it's harder to control at higher speeds, right? So that's why there's such thing as stiff shafts, extra stiff shafts, and all that stuff. Because if you take someone who swings 120 miles an hour, and then you give them like a senior shaft, right? It's a shaft that's 40 grams and has a ton of whip to it, or something like that. Well, they're going to be able to swing it faster, most likely, right? But it's going to be very, very difficult to control because the club is flexing so much, right? So it's hard to time when that club's going to kick and all that stuff. It can make it very, very difficult. So that's why typically faster swing speed players, they're going to have stiffer shafts because they're going to have less flex. It's going to make it a little bit easier to control, right? They're already swinging fast, so they don't need that extra from the whip of the club. Charlie says, I meant, do you lose any distance from a slower backswing? It really just depends. The answer was kind of already hidden in what my answer before, but basically, if you make a faster backswing, so let's say this: if you make a slower backswing compared to your faster backswing, and your faster backswing, the club is out of position, and you're having to make compensations in the downswing to get the club back on track, and a lot of times those compensations slow you down, right? And then you make a slower backswing, and now you don't necessarily get the club in a better position, but you might be more likely to get the club in a better position because you can feel the weight of the club head and feel where it is better, because ultimately speed takes away feel, right? So when you make a really fast backswing, you may not be able to feel where the club is, where the shaft is, right? And that's when the compensations and stuff may come in and slow you down. But when you swing slower, right, you may have a better feel for where that is, and you might be able to make a much more efficient downswing, right? So there's no concrete answer to it. There are players that have slower backswings, as I mentioned, like a Cameron Young, like Cameron Young hits the ball a long way. He swings 120 plus miles an hour and makes a slow backswing, pauses at the top. So it's really there's no concrete answer. You can certainly lose distance. So let's say all things equal, you make the same exact swing with a slower backswing versus a faster backswing. The only difference is that one's slower than the other, right? The only difference is the speed. So the club is in the same great spot or whatever that it was before. Well, then the faster backswing, you're going to tend to swing faster in the downswing because of all the kinetic energy that you're creating, right? Whereas, when a slower backswing, you're not taking advantage of that quite as much. But like I said, a lot of times faster backswings put you in bad positions that don't allow you to make slower or to make faster downswings. So you kind of just have to find out what works best for you. What I would say is that I would make whatever speed of backswing allows you to make the best downswing, because the golf ball does not care what your backswing is. It does not care. It only cares about how the club is being presented to it at impact. That's all it cares about. So if making a faster backswing leads to a great downswing, you get plenty of speed, you're able to make ball first contact, center face contact, and have your face angle and club path square at impact. If you're able to do that, great. Then that's probably the backswing speed that's going to work great for you. John Rahm has a fast backswing, right? Works really great for him, right? But if you find when you go fast, now you're chunking it, you're faster, because that could be it too. You make a faster backswing, but then you start hitting it terrible. Well, that's no good. What? Because it's not going to give you that. It's not like you're going to gain 10 miles an hour, right? You're going to gain a few miles an hour typically at most from a faster backswing, depending on how slow maybe your backswing was before. But if it's leading to open club face, over the top steep, and that sort of thing, then it's not really worth doing because you might swing faster, but if you don't make a good connection with the ball, you're not really going to make any. You're not going to take advantage of that speed. All right, we got a little over 20 minutes left here. If we got some more questions, if not, no big deal at all. No problem, Charlie. Glad to help. All right, we got about 20 minutes left here. If we got some more questions. If not, no big deal at all. All right, folks, we got about 10 minutes left here. Real quickly, we won't have office hours on the 24th and 25th next week, but normal office hours everywhere else. So Monday, Thursday, and Friday we'll have office hours on those days. And then New Year's will be kind of the same thing. Believe New Year's Eve and New Year's Day we won't have office hours. I believe that's also a Tuesday, Wednesday. So the next 2 weeks will be Tuesday and Wednesday. We won't have office hours the next 2 weeks, but Monday, Thursday, and Friday we will. So. Hey, buddy. All right, we got about 5 minutes left here. If we got any more questions. All right, so we got a question here from Willis says, I think a lot of my poor shots are happening when my right elbow is not in the right position at impact. Which part of the TSG should I reference to help with this flaw? So that's actually not what I would recommend that you do. What I would recommend that you do is tell me what your ball flight and contact issues are. And then, because I think a big mistake that a lot of people make is that they know that they're hitting it bad, right? They don't hit it great all the time. So then they just start looking at the swing and it's like, oh, my right elbow. Well, that's not necessarily how you want to look at it. What you want to do is look at what are your ball flight and contact issues. All right. Pull hooks and blocks, both. Pull hooks and blocks. So it sounds to me like you're probably swinging too much from the inside, right? So that's what could lead to that. So if you swing too much from the inside and then your face is closed, you're going to hit hooks, right? And if you swing too much from the inside and your face is open, you're going to hit blocks, right? So it sounds to me like you're probably swinging too much from the inside and you just need to swing more out to in. More than likely is what you need to do. So, I mean, that's what I would recommend doing. It could also be a strike issue. So if you're hitting the ball excessively off the toe, that can lead to what you're talking about. So maybe using some foot fire spray, and that may have absolutely nothing to do with your elbow. So the reason why you don't want to work on your swing that way or try to improve that way is because you can work on having your elbow be in whatever kind of position, but it may make absolutely zero difference in how you hit the ball. In fact, it may actually make you hit the ball worse trying to get your elbow to be in some position, right? So, there isn't a part of the top speed golf system that goes over the right elbow position because there is not one right elbow position that everyone has to be in. So that's really what the top speed golf system is. The top speed golf system are the things in the golf swing that all the best players do. Every single one of them move this way, right? So stable fluid spine, right? These are the things. These are the small number of things that are going on in the golf swing that give you most of your results, right? So that's what I would be kind of, we don't get into detail exactly like where your arm needs to be because when you look at better players, right, you're going to see the right arm doing different things, from player to player. So there's no one way that all the best players kind of move their right arm. So it's kind of a slippery slope when you're just thinking about technique only, when really what you want to do is you want to look at what are your ball flight and contact issues. Then you could look at your swing and be like, okay, well, part of it's understanding what's going on at impact. So what can cause a pull hook? Basically, if the ball is hooking, it means that the club face is too closed, right? Well, is it too closed because you're coming into contact and the face is too closed? Or is it too closed because maybe you're hitting the ball off the heel? I know I said toe earlier. I'll explain why in a minute. But maybe you're hitting the ball off the heel and that face is twisting the face closed. And if you hit it off the heel enough, it will hook because the face will twist closed so much from the face being closed, right? A block or a toe strike can also cause that because if you don't hit it excessively off the toe, so if you hit it way off the toe, the face will twist open, and then you can get like a block out to the right or a slice. The face will twist open so much that the ball may go off to the right. So, but if you don't hit it too excessively on the toe, but still on the toe, you'll get an effect called gear effect. So basically what that means is that when you hit the ball and that ball is pancaked on the face, right? When it smashes up against the face, it will actually kind of roll on the face for that split second. And that's what gear effect is, right? So if I hit it on the toe, if this is the toe of the club, my hand here, my right hand, that's the toe of the club right there, where my fingers are. And my ball comes in like this, that's going to twist the face open. And then you'll get kind of like this effect on there. So if you're kind of looking at like a bird's eye view, that's kind of what happens. So my fist is the golf ball here, and that's rolling toward the middle. And then my club face is kind of like twisting open. So that can put that right hand spin on it that makes it hook, right? So what I would do is I would check your strikes on the face, see if you're consistently hitting the ball in the middle of the face. And if you're someone that's constantly thinking about internally, like what your body is doing, try thinking about what the club is doing with the ball. Try focusing on hitting the ball in the middle of the face. I think that's a lot of people's problems is that they think way too internally about what their body's doing, right? All they're thinking about is right elbow this, left arm that, right knee this, and wrist this, bow the wrist that. And that's not really how you want to play golf. Now, when you're practicing, you're trying to incorporate a technique, yeah, you need to think about that, and you need to think about it until it's second nature. But when you go play golf, you can't train your golf swing and try to play golf at the same time. It's very difficult, if not impossible. And you're most likely going to play absolutely terrible when you do that, because you're not playing golf. You're playing golf swing, right? So in order to play golf, what do we need to do? We need to make ball first contact, center face contact, square the club face, neutral path. Those are the things that you want to do. And if you're thinking internally about anything, it has to be to directly make those things happen if you're struggling with one of those. So, for example, let's say you're struggling with chunking the ball. Well, a good swing thought, or a good internal technical thought, could be, okay, I'm going to shift my weight to my lead side to make sure that I can get the ground contact to be more in front, right? So that would be an example. So I would check your strike location. I'd look at your swing on video, see how the club is coming down, right? Draw the shallowing line. So get the camera set up down your toe line. This is very important, by the way. If you don't set up the camera right and get a good camera angle, you will not be able to interpret it carefully, right? Correctly. So get the camera angle set up down your toe line. Easiest way to do that is put a club or an alignment stick down on the ground, line up the camera with that. Then when you go to hit the ball, have your toes right up there on that stick. And then you want it set up at hip level and then far away enough to where you and the club stay in the frame. You'll then draw a line that goes from the hosel, or goes from the ball up to the middle of your elbow, and then see how your club comes down in relation to that line, right? Ideally, that club would track just underneath that line down to the ball. If it's over that line, you're steep, right? If it's too far under that line, and when I say under the line, I'm talking like a club head width, right? So if it's pretty much on the line or just underneath it, that's a good place to be. That means you're going to be coming in with like a nice neutral path down to the ball. But if it's way over the line and then you have to stand up out of it, it gets way underneath it, it can be difficult to be consistent. If you're way over the line the whole way, if you're way too much inside the line the whole way, it can lead to poor strikes. So it'd be about, okay, now I need to get the club. Now that might involve getting the elbow in, right? But you need to arrive at that, right? You don't want to just go through, just say, oh, right elbow, because then you're not actually pairing it with anything that's going wrong, right? And you don't know if it's actually working or not. So that's why you don't want to just kind of go about it in that way. All right, we'll wrap it up right there. Thanks, everyone, for joining me. We'll be back here Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day and have a great weekend, and I will talk to you next time.